My name is Matt Caddo. I'm the Coles District appointee to the Racial and Social Justice Commission, and London Steverson, who is the Brentsville District appointee, and Erica Trednick, who is the Gainesville District appointee to that commission. We have served the last 12 months on this commission, charged by the Board of County Supervisors to identify areas of systemic racism in the provision of services in policing, in government services, and education. At the conclusion of the 12-month period, the obligation was to produce a report to the Board of County Supervisors. And over the last 12 months, we've listened to a variety of politically inspired and totally perverse reports about so-called racism in Prince William County. The truth is, the evidence and data show that we're a great county. Not that individuals don't themselves express racist viewpoints, which we abhor, but as a county, for those areas we were allowed to investigate, we found the county does pretty well. But there are areas that we were prohibited from looking at, for example, the school system, where we know that the effects of the in-person learning, or rather remote learning, were dramatic for kids, and there was already a dramatic gap in learning achievement for students of color. And we weren't allowed to talk about that. We were told specifically by the school board representative that that was not allowed, and the chairman of the commission said that we weren't going to talk about that since the school board member said it. We couldn't talk about critical race theory, which was a raging controversy and certainly needed to do it. And when we finally forced it, they brought in the most radical leftist extremists to talk about critical race theory and demonize the public school system. We think it's unfair, we think it's wrong, and so the minority report that we developed is in response to the need for the Board of County Supervisors to take action to dissolve this commission and allow whatever effort is needed to let individual agencies of county government to take care of that. I know London wanted to also comment on this before we go to questions.
Yes, I'm London Steverson. I represent the Brentsville District, and I guess the million-dollar question is, why did I vote against the majority report? I voted against it because it repudiates, it violates every oath that I've taken in my career life as a Christian, as a public servant, as a military officer. In the beginning of the report in the executive summary, it states that the problem that they see is that Prince William County is dominated by white professionals in education, in police force, and so forth. And it states its goal is to ensure that the county is an equitable county. Well, I can live with equal opportunity council, that all men are created equal and our rights come from God. But indeed, as a matter of fact, one of our professionals has either retired or resigned as effective December 31st. Commissioner Martino, the county executive, that leaves our police chief. But the rhetoric in the report is toxic and it's dangerous. Anecdotes in the report are used as evidence. Best example of that offered is the incident involving the Reverend Cozy Bale. Now, I respect him tremendously. I think his career has been spectacular. He's been a U.S. Marine Corps commissioned officer. He's the president of the local NAACP. He's the pastor of a church. And I have to say that when you get older, you start to remember things that didn't happen. You know, Brian Williams remembered being in Vietnam. Our president remembers all kinds of stuff. There's a guy in Connecticut, a senator, Richard Blumenthal. He remembers being a combat veteran, wounded combat veteran in Vietnam, but he never left the United States. So I'm hoping that Reverend Bailey is combining a memory that someone told him about and has been confused in his mind, because the mind is not a camera. So, but that anecdote was investigated by the police force and the county, and it never happened. It didn't happen. That's just an example of why I voted against it. Now, the majority report also repudiates everything that the Reverend Martin Luther King stood for. His dream was my dream. His dream was deeply rooted in the American dream. This majority report will take us back past the 60s. This is going to take us back to Jim Crow days in the South. I mean, Martin Luther King dreamed of a day when his 4 little children would be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. That's my dream, and this majority report repudiates that. Now, I think Prince William County is a great county. I love Prince William County. Rodney King could not have happened in Prince William County. The George Floyd murder would not have happened in Prince William County. James Chaney, Andy Goodman, Nicholas Werner, you name it. None of that would have happened in Prince William County. I've toured the police academy. We have some great guys there. We have no complaints of police brutality. We have no complaints of racism. I've been stopped. I've been questioned by police, but you go along with what the officer says and nothing happens. So I love Prince William County. I could not vote for that report, and I hardly endorse the minority report.
I'm Erica, and I've served on this commission for a year, and I also believe that these two reports are very differing. And I actually think it's a great thing that they have them both in their hands, that they can look at the scope of difference on this commission. I wish and hoped that our report would be allowed to be a part of the entire report, since we were part of the entire commission. We were not granted that permission, and so therefore we had to come out with a minority report that states some of the things that we think that they're missing. I think the main factor in all of this is that we were tasked to find the racial and social injustice in the county, and we did find that there was none. And I think that everyone in that room can agree with that. I think that they want more time to look for stuff, which I don't know how much more time you need than a year, and how many more people that you need to have in the room, because we have all the heavy hitters in the county with the chief of police, with the county exec, school board members. So I just think we've had access, and I think we've had the time. And I think now it's time to put this commission to bed.
Questions? A lot of the report, of the official report, focuses on the school division. They talk about SROs, they talk about potentially doing away with the SRO program. When you say that you wanted to look into areas of the school division, how they operate, what were they? What did you want to look into? What did you want to know?
Well, as a member of the education subcommittee, we had a school teacher and a school board member, so it was a 2-to-1 vote on any issue that I wanted to explore. I posed a number of questions about the way that the policies that are in effect that created the disparity and the learning gap between students of color and white students. Why the graduation differences weren't improving. Why were we failing to do that? And each time I was denied access to that information. I asked about creative programs that have been used in other jurisdictions to, for example, in Title I schools, which are indicators of a low economic student population. Why don't we incentivize teachers that have good testing capability based on their performance, bring them into those schools by giving them financial incentives? It has worked in other jurisdictions. They patted me on the head and said, that sounds a good idea. Not a single report or part of that was in the report that was submitted. It was all focused on SROs, which the chairman of the committee, at the beginning of our discussions, condemned the current SRO program, called it racist, said that it was incredible the disproportionate number of Hispanic and black children that were being apprehended by SROs. I asked specific questions, got the data from the police chief, and then the committee chair relied upon old data from a report that was done back in 2019, relying on data that was even older than that, to claim that that's what was the condition in Prince William County, and none of the report he relied upon talked about Prince William County. Our SRO program is well managed, it's different, and the data contradicted everything he said, and yet a large portion of this report is about how the SROs are bad. We should protect the children in the schools. That's why SROs are there. Can we improve it? Perhaps. Do we eradicate it, eliminate it? No, that's silliness, but that's what they wanted to do. So that's an example of where they just blocked the door from any reasonable discussion about data and evidence, and yet relied upon their progressive political agenda that's popular on a national level. They should run for public office at a national level and correct those problems. But here in Prince William County, don't demonize us because we do things right, because somebody else is doing something wrong in another location.
You spent a year on this commission. As you said, you had a lot of heavy hitters in the room. The police chief, county executive, the school board,
Human Rights Commission.
Human Rights Commissioner. Was this, can you turn around and tell the taxpayer that this was time well spent, that this was worth the funding, this was worth the time and investment of energy and resources?
Absolutely not. I think that you wasted a lot of people's time expecting them to come to these meetings and listen through sessions on and listen to members of the community that were great but had nothing to do with our commission, members outside of the community that had nothing to do with what we were tasked to do. And we had no say in who we got to listen to. It was not a vote. It was not a consensus. It was mandated by who was put in charge of this commission. And I think that it was a huge waste of time. There's an equity commission for the schools. Why do we exist as well? You know, just to come up with a report that they may or may not take and listen to.
I believe that it is better to light one candle than curse the darkness. I think that our struggle is a foundation that can be built upon. I think it's better to have traveled this route and come up where we are a year later than to never have attempted it at all.
But I would add one other thing, that this had potential for doing exactly what the Board of County Supervisors wanted it to do, which is to make a critical examination of the condition of racial and social injustice in Prince William County. What it became from the very start was a political effort because, for example, to be a committee lead, to be a committee subcommittee chairman, you had to have organizational activity and credentials in community organizing. Now, I don't know what that meant to the chairman. I have been a member of the legislature. I have run political campaigns. I have been on the Strategic Planning Commission for the county. I have been active in budget committees throughout the county. I've organized at every level I can imagine.
I nominated him for chairman.
And I'm an HOA president
He was voted up.
for 20 years. Now, what kind of community organizing were they talking about? Well, actually, it was about racial community organizing. And that's what tainted, from the very start, this commission. All of the committee leads were people that had experience in racial and social justice organizing activities, and that proves their bias. This thing got thrown into the toilet from the very start when its noble goal was eradicated by this political agenda by the chairman and the people that she selected individually by her own volition to be subcommittee leads, and that's what's tainted this report.
Is there anything else that you want us to know?
In the second meeting, I was prepared to offer 24 amendments to the order that organized us. They took the first one. They said we will use RSJC instead of the Racial and Social Justice Commission. And then they voted to table everything. They wouldn't take my amendments one at a time. They said we will table it until the end of the year and we'll revisit it. Guess what? They never revisited it. It died on the shelf.
From the very start, we were trained by the Prince William County Inclusion and Equity Officer, Maria Burgos. We were trained that to identify racism in Prince William County required us to accept the notion that everyone is racist because if you don't believe you're racist, it's because you're in denial and it's unconscious bias. And she presented information. And then she went through a whole list of the various organizational biases and it ran the gamut. So at the end of the day, you could not say, I'm not racist. Because if you did, you're lying because you're subject to all these biases. She gave us 2 of those trainings because it didn't settle with me very well or these others. And the bottom line on that is that she ran this commission. It was a staff-driven, and tonight the Board of County Supervisors is going to hear a presentation. I FOIA'd exactly what the discussions were between the chairman and the staff that's preparing the PowerPoint presentation that summarizes this report that this board is going to hear. And when I said I want to see all the communications between the chairman and the staff, and the chairman immediately wrote back and said, I have none, because she didn't participate in it. This is being all driven by the staff, and they got exactly what they wanted because it was a staff-driven exercise from day one. And today you see a highly tainted report that was designed to do one thing, to deliver a biased, progressive political agenda that applies nationally but not to Prince William County.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.